And
wherever
now,
you are,
the dust settles.
whether you're settling into
From
bed
the heat
or
of
simply
Roman roads
seeking stillness,
to the quiet of
allow
senators'
yourself
chambers
to slow down.
From volcanic ash
The world
to
outside
may
may
hum
with
with
artifacts,
but here with
we
me,
have wandered
you're
far
entering
tonight.
a gentler pace.
But through it all,
The lowing
a
of
gentle
cattle,
rhythm
the
has
murmur of
remained.
doves, the chirp of crickets, all weave a lullaby to soothe your senses. If you came here seeking rest, you found it. If you came seeking dreams, they will come. For here, time seems to pause, suspended between day and night. It is here between the fading light and the first stars, that I want to tell you about people who walked this earth before us. Not the mighty or the infamous, but ordinary people who moved from one place to another, carrying hopes, fears, and stories with them like bundles on their backs. Welcome to the past, where the Roman Empire stretched from the windswept moors of Britannia to the golden sands of Egypt. The roads hummed with life. Along these thoroughfares, merchants hawked their wares, soldiers marched to distant campaigns, and pilgrims made their way to sacred sites. But the grand narratives of empire and war often eclipsed the tales of these everyday travelers. Their hopes, dreams, and hardships lost to the sands of time. It's me. This is the past. And over the next few minutes, I want to tell you the forgotten stories of travelers in the Roman Empire. You are standing on the edge of the Appian Way, better known to Romans as the Via Appia. Stretching out before you is a ribbon of packed earth and stone, flanked by low stone walls, the beginning of the longest and perhaps most famous Roman road. You know that because you have a guidebook, one of many that have been published in the past 2 centuries. Yes, you are traveling in 2023, but you're experiencing the Via Appia as it was in the 1st century BC when it was constructed. Well, what began as a simple track used by shepherds and hunters has been upgraded to a proper road at the behest of the powerful Appius Claudius Caecus. He was the censor at the time, one of the most powerful positions in Roman politics. His term in office was from 316 to 312 BC, and he was responsible for overseeing the census and maintaining public morals. While censuses are still carried out, his other duties are more nebulous. Basically, if there were any problems in Rome, it was his job to fix them. That's why he paid for the Via Appia, because the old road was dangerous, full of bandits. And bandits, according to Plutarch, were very bad for public morals. The Appian Way would cut through the center of Italy and connect Rome to Capua, where a new military camp was being built. And since the road had to pass through some marshy areas, Appius Claudius also funded the construction of several aqueducts to drain the land, thereby preventing floods and creating fertile farmland. Today, travelers heading south encounter the tombs of the original Via Appia, now forming a sort of natural tunnel. The tombs line both sides of the road, evidence that the area has been settled for centuries. Many of these tombs have been robbed, so only the empty niches remain, but others are still intact. There are whole estates carved out of the tufa, a spongy volcanic rock found in this region. In fact, the Via Appia is so lined with tombs that it earned the nickname King's Road, because according to legend, 12 of Rome's early kings are buried along its route. One of them even belonged to the legendary King Numa Pompilius, whose tomb is reached by descending a flight of steps into a small underground chamber. You aren't the first person to stand here today, of course. You're actually reliving an 18th century painting by Giovanni Paolo Panini called The Roman Road. In it, an ancient tomb is the focal point with the Via Appia winding in the background. But the people are modern. They include King George II and several members of the British aristocracy. It was painted in 1740 during a grand tour, a rite of passage for wealthy young Europeans to visit Rome and experience classical antiquity. Panini specialized in these Roman ruins paintings, and he created a market for them. The English were especially fond of them, so much so that there is a name for this type of painting, a panoramic view. As you continue walking down the Via Appia, you eventually reach the Porta San Paolo, the last of Rome's original gates. Beyond lies the circus. Firmus, an oval racetrack where chariots pulled by teams of horses competed against one another. The course was designed by the Emperor Domitian and completed around 86. A Diad was named after one of the emperors, a man who sponsored chariot races. And you have options when it comes to tickets. A seat in the stands will cost you anything from 1 quadrans to 8. If you want something a little bit more comfortable, then you can pay for a wooden chair. Just make sure that you bring a cushion, because those things are hard as stone. And there are many people here. Chariot racing is wildly popular in Rome, second only to the gladiatorial games. So make sure you arrive early to get good seats. And the big races are held to honor major festivals like the Ludi Romani, which celebrates the founding of the city of Rome, or the Consuelia, a celebration of the birth of Romulus and Remus. But sometimes the races are used to mark important occasions. For example, an empress might give away chariots to celebrate the birth of a child. In fact, there are certain boxes in the stands reserved for Rome's elite. You may even see the emperor himself up there in his private box, drinking wine and enjoying the spectacle. But wait, what if you don't like sports? What else is there to do here in Rome? Well, right next door to the circus is the Baths of Caracalla, named after the emperor who renovated the site. The baths themselves are free to use, but you'll probably want to pay a few coins for a massage or to rent a couch. And the baths are more than just a place to bathe. They're a social hub, a place to meet friends or conduct business deals. When you leave the baths, make sure you stop by the nearby market and stock up on some fresh fruits, vegetables, and fish. Make sure you bring some back to your inn because chances are they won't have food there. Most inns cater to travelers passing through, not permanent residents. And although they're clean and usually safe, they lack basic commodities like running water or regular meals. So, as you settle into your room for the evening, make sure you take everything out of your bag and put it in the chest. Some inns keep valuables overnight, but others allow guests to keep their things in the room. When you leave in the morning, though, remember to take everything out of the chest and double-check that the room is empty before leaving. Otherwise, you could lose everything. As you drift off to sleep, you hear a commotion in the street, a fight breaking out near the tavern. But it's just a brawl, nothing too serious. Fights break out every night, usually because one patron insulted another and then refused to fight it out in the street. Instead, they waited until nightfall, when fighting without weapons was forbidden. Patrons would drink themselves into oblivion and hope that the guards would be too drunk to stop them. But the patrons are going home soon, their drunken shouts fading into the night. For the moment, you are at peace. Your destination is still far off, but the road is good and the weather fair. So you leave early the next morning, accompanied by a growing sense of anticipation. As the sun climbs higher, the air grows warmer and you feel the energy of the city on your skin. There's a buzz in the air, a mix of commerce and daily life. You join the steady stream of traffic flowing from the Porta San Polo gate, mixing with the steady stream of traffic. Merchants trundling on carts, soldiers on campaign, and slaves pulling carts laden with goods. You fall into step with a group of traveling merchants, their chatter a lively counterpoint to the rhythmic clop of hooves on stone. Their wares are a rich mix of textures and scents, fine linens, fragrant spices, and exotic woods, each telling a silent story of faraway lands. The road is your constant companion, a rough-hewn ribbon of earth and stone stretching into the horizon. Every bend, every rise offering a new vignette of the Italian countryside. Rolling hills dotted with vineyards and olive groves, farmers tending their fields, and the occasional rustic cottage with smoke curling from its chimney. These scenes are a soothing balm to the frenetic pace of city life. Now it's time to go. Your road forks ahead, presenting two paths, each just as inviting, each promising its own allure. One leads to Florence, a city celebrated for its art and learning. The other veers towards Venice, famed for its lagoon and mercantile prowess. But hold on, traveler. Before you choose your path, remember the spirit of your journey. Are you seeking the Medici's exquisite works or the salty tang of the sea? Perhaps you're drawn to both. And who are we to dictate your desires? You're the architect of your adventure. So take a deep breath, let your instincts be your guide, and choose your path wisely. After all, each fork in the road is a chance to write a new chapter in your journey. And as you venture forth, know that the heart of Italy beats with anticipation, ready to unveil its treasures to those who wander its enchanting lanes. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Past. To make sure you don't miss any future episodes, subscribe and never forget, you are the author of your own history. Today we begin our journey along the ancient Roman road called the Via Appia, also known as the Appian Way. And now we're walking the same road. It's the year 129, and the morning begins before the light. The innkeeper has already left a rough crust of bread near your mat. The air still heavy with the smoke of last night's oil lamp. You sit up slowly, joints sore from the uneven floor. The scent of straw, old wine, and damp stone lingers. You're not a Roman noble. You're a merchant's assistant, a low-ranking functionary in a traveling trade caravan carrying olive oil, scrolls, and spices from the southern coast of Italy to the port at Brundisium. Your task is simple. Keep the ledgers dry, the mules moving, and your master's temper in check. Your name means nothing here. You were given it by your parents because your father wanted to be a sailor and your mother was from Africa. You do not remember either of them. You grew up in taverns and on ships, learning to read, write, and track accounts. The master noticed your ability with numbers and took you under his wing, teaching you what little he himself knows about the world. You have been with him 3 years, long enough to earn his grudging respect, though never a kind word or an extra coin. He trusts you with more than the others, even allowing you to sit with him at the table, drinking wine and listening to his boasts of former glory and daring exploits. They are true stories, though some details may be exaggerated. He's not a cruel man, but he does not suffer fools. And if you make a mistake, he will know. If the mule trips, you walk behind it. If rain soaks the cargo, you sleep without shelter. He is fair, though, in that everyone must endure the same punishment for any failing. Even he cannot escape the consequences of a storm or the sudden illness that strikes a mule or the bite of a desert snake. When those things happen, all he has to offer is curses. He has allowed you to bring a slave with you, a young girl rescued from a band of brigands. She was sold into slavery when she was only 7 and knows nothing except servitude. The master paid for her freedom as a reward for bringing down the brigand leader. You bought her a tunic and sandals and taught her to read. She's the only person you care about in the whole world, and she is not yours to keep. When the master decides she's earned her freedom, you must part ways. Such is life on the road. You remind yourself that you must always be ready to move on. That is why you carry your possessions with you at all times. The pack is heavy, not just with goods, but with responsibility. It contains precious items, a wax tablet for accounts, a folded map, 2 letters sealed with red wax, and a small pouch of coins hidden in a secret flap sewn beneath the lining. You touch it often to reassure yourself it's still there. The letters are from the master's brother, a senator in Rome. You do not know what they contain, but you do know that they must be delivered personally. Should anything happen to you, the master would rather suffer his brother's anger than entrust these missives to another. You step outside. The Via Appia stretches before you, a marvel of Roman engineering, they say, yet the stones are uneven and hard beneath your sandals. The early sun brings no warmth, only the glare of another cloudless day ahead. You look back at the inn. There's nothing to see but white walls and a thatched roof. The owner waves from a window. His wife watches silently from the door, cradling a baby swaddled against her hip. You don't want to linger here any longer than necessary. You turn away and follow the road. A pair of soldiers pass, marching in perfect unison, their armor gleaming in the distance. You can hear the rhythmic clang of a hammer on steel. The road rises and the heat shimmers above the stones. In the distance, a lone tree offers meager shade. You break into a sweat despite the early hour. Soon the sun climbs higher, turning the sky from blue to gold. A thin layer of haze hangs over the landscape, muffling sound and hiding details. Up ahead, you can see a column of dust rising into the sky. You have seen this before. It could be a storm. You are nearing the end of the second hour, and the day promises to be as hot as the last. The sky is cloudless, the sun merciless. You feel its power long before you see its face. Above you, the road stretches endlessly toward the mountains in the distance. In the shimmering heat, the line between earth and sky seems to blur. You squint, shielding your eyes. In the distance, you see a rider urging his horse into a faster pace. As he draws closer, you can see that he carries a purple staff with a silver top. Such a staff denotes an imperial courier. As he passes, he glances at you and nods slightly. Imperial couriers are not merely fast. They are fearless, able to outrun bandits and outmaneuver wild dogs. Most people fear them, but you have heard tales of their skill and courage. You wonder if anyone is faster. Before the light, the innkeeper has already left a rough crust of bread near your mat. The air is still heavy with the smoke of last night's oil lamp. You sit up slowly, joints sore from the uneven floor. The scent of straw, old wine, and damp stone lingers. It is time to start your shift. You're not a Roman noble. You are a merchant's assistant, a lowly functionary in a traveling trade caravan carrying olive oil, scrolls and spices from the southern coast of Italy to the port at Brundisium. Simple enough. Your task is simple. Keep the ledgers dry, the mules moving, and your master's temper in check. Step outside. The Via Appia stretches before you. A marvel of Roman engineering, they say, yet the stones are uneven and hard beneath your sandals. The early sun brings no warmth, only the glare of another cloudless day ahead. You tighten the straps of your pack, not just with goods, but with responsibility. It contains precious items, a wax tablet for accounts, a folded map, 2 letters sealed with red wax, and a small pouch of coins hidden in a secret flap sewn beneath the lining. You touch it often to reassure yourself it is still there. The road is not empty. Other travelers pass, a pair of soldiers, a silent priest, a farmer with geese bound for the market. No one smiles. Conversation is rare on the road. Everyone has somewhere to be, and no one wants to share too much. Then it is your turn to walk. Step, step, pull the mule. The rhythm of the march soon becomes your world. Every few hours you pass a milestone, carved in Latin, each one promising progress, but they seem impossibly far apart. At midday, you find a rest station, a mansio, where the state maintains supplies for official couriers, not for merchants like your master. You watch as better-fed travelers drink cool water and recline under awnings. Your meal is a handful of olives and a sliver of salted pork. In the afternoon, a wheel breaks on one of the carts. You wait in the heat as it is repaired, sweat trickling down your spine. Time slows. The smell of horse sweat, leather, and boiling pitch becomes all-consuming. Insects buzz in the air, relentless. Bandits are always a concern. The soldiers you saw earlier are gone. Your group tightens. The road winds near a forested stretch, a known ambush site. Your master clutches his dagger, muttering about past attacks. The silence here is different, heavy, but nothing happens. Not today. By dusk, your sandals are soaked in sweat and your eyes sting from the sun. The day ends at another roadside inn, a square stone building with a sloping roof and a dusty courtyard. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of travelers. You eat watery lentil stew from a cracked bowl and curl up against your pack. You woke before first light to start your shift again. You haven't been paid for this trip, not really. There are other benefits, your master said when he hired you. You'll see the world, get some fresh air. And if you don't complain about your rations, you won't be given cause to complain. For 5 days, you have walked behind mules laden with jars of olive oil, bales of wool, and boxes of figs. The road has been long and hard, but the miles have passed. Now, on the 6th day, you'd like to go home. But life in the Roman world had its demands. Whether for trade, duty, or exile, millions of people walked roads like this one. And most are forgotten, but for a brief moment, you walked in their sandals. Travelers in the ancient world moved across a complex web of roads that connected the far reaches of the empire. In the Mediterranean, seafaring was the dominant mode of transport, especially for long distances. But for many journeys, the roads were the only way to go. And there were several reasons why so many people were on the move. For many, trade was the incentive. The Roman Empire stretched from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Turkey, and everything in between. Throughout the empire, local artisans produced useful and luxurious goods, but those goods were rarely available in their own towns. Salt from the coastal cities, marble from Greece, bronze from Spain, glass from Egypt, perfumes from Arabia, silk from China. If you wanted these things, you needed merchants to bring them to you. But trade wasn't the only reason for travel. Military service could send men and women on the road, either for a campaign or, more commonly, for garrison duty. Legions marched to conquer and defend, but the legions also needed support, logistics, food, equipment, even entertainment. All of that had to be transported along the roads. There were even designated roads for the emperor's post. a kind of pony express, where couriers would race along the routes to deliver messages to the provinces and back. But who were these travelers? What kinds of people would be on the road? They were a varied lot, young and old, men and women, free and enslaved, citizens and non-citizens. There were wealthy aristocrats traveling to and from the capital, farmers bringing produce to market, shopkeepers visiting distant relatives, herders driving livestock to the butcher, slaves being sold in the slave markets, beggars going where the food is. Not surprisingly, the great majority of travelers fell into the middle. Lower middle classes, merchants, artisans, laborers, soldiers, tax collectors, officials. These were the people who kept the empire turning. Their lives were shaped by the needs of the economy, and they constantly moved around to keep the money flowing. Whether you were rich or poor, male or female, traveling in the ancient world was never easy, but it was usually safe. Rome boasted a sophisticated system of roads that crisscrossed the entire empire, making travel relatively fast and predictable. Some roads were better than others. The famous Appian Way was paved with the right stones, smoothed with the right gravel, even graded to let rainwater drain away. Others were little more than trails. Either way, the government cleared vegetation and made sure travelers could get from point A to point B without getting lost. Of course, bad things happened on the road. Bandits, runaways, breakdowns. Sometimes, the road took you through wild areas full of snakes and wild animals, and sometimes it meant crossing rivers that could swell after rain. But generally, the government worked to make the roads safe. Partly because travelers might need help, but also because the government wanted them to keep traveling. When you were on the road, you had little choice but to follow the road itself, a path laid out long ago by Roman engineers. It ran through fields, forests, mountains, across rivers, around hills. It was almost always flat, never very steep. It was carefully engineered to avoid difficult terrain, but the road wasn't just a line. Travelers could follow it north or south, up or down. They could cross from east to west. The Romans built thousands of bridges, large and small, to make sure you didn't have to spend weeks waiting for a river to recede. If you got tired of walking, there were places to rest. Mansions were set up by the government to give travelers a place to sleep, eat, and refresh themselves. They weren't fancy, but they were clean and the price was regulated. Even private inns were usually decent, since the owner knew that travelers had little choice but to stop there. Unlike today, there were no cars to break down, so most problems on the road were caused by humans. If you broke an axle, a bridge was out, an inn was full. The solution was usually to pay someone to fix the problem. But what if you were the problem? What if you broke down, got sick, injured, hungry, or thirsty? The good news is, you didn't have to look far for help. The bad news is that help came at a price. The whole system of travel depended on people looking out for each other, helping each other out on the road. And everyone expected something in return. A traveler who couldn't pay his bill might end up working off his debt, maybe repairing shoes or hauling luggage. Those who had the money usually paid for help with silver, copper, and bronze coins minted in Rome. There were even weights and measures set up across the empire to make sure that you didn't get cheated. But you could also use something else to pay your debts, your time. In fact, it was common for merchants and other travelers to hire people to do odd jobs for them, carry their luggage, mend their clothes, even cook their meals. These were usually slaves, men and women bought and sold across the empire who could be used and abused at will. But even free people were occasionally hired for these tasks. Life on the road was hard, and there was no shortage of people willing to offer their services for the right price. Some travelers were more interesting than others. On any given day, you might pass an envoy bearing important messages from the emperor, a senator returning from business in the capital, a poet reciting the latest gossip, a soldier on leave from the front, a widow on her way to start a new life, an elderly man seeing the sights one last time, a group of freed slaves celebrating their good fortune. And you might meet some interesting people along the way, people who change your life in big and small ways. You might strike up a conversation with a fellow traveler, a chance meeting that turns into a lifelong friendship. Or you might get taken advantage of by a cunning innkeeper or a false friend. But the greatest danger on the road was probably the road itself. Walking was hard, especially with a heavy pack. The hours were long and the routine was dull. Travelers suffered from exhaustion, blisters, insect bites, snake bites, sunburn, loneliness. On some days, the road seemed to stretch forever. The same trees lining the route, the same birds singing overhead, the same dust beneath your feet. And the worst part is you couldn't escape it. The road was the only way to get where you wanted to go. You couldn't take a shortcut, detour, or fly around it. You had to walk. The ancient Romans understood how hard it was to travel, which is why they developed a system to make it easier. They built rest stops, set prices, maintained roads, stationed officials, encouraged inns, standardized currency, made maps, even helped regulate the weather. But none of that helped you the most. If you broke down, you had to solve your own problem. A runaway mule, a broken cart, a cut foot, a fever, that was on you. Luckily, you brought some supplies, extra rope, a bandage, some dried fruit, a bit of wine. Traveling was dangerous, but life in the Roman world was more fragile than you think. Disease killed more people than war. A single fever could wipe out a whole caravan. Hunger could drive you to desperate measures. Wild animals sometimes attacked. Even friendly people could be deadly. It was a violent world, but a fascinating one. And for a brief moment, you experienced it all firsthand. Many paths went through the city of Rome, but they all pointed away from it. In the imperial era, Rome was the center of the world. If you wanted to get anywhere, you started here. From the bustling Forum to the baths of Caracalla, the Colosseum to the Pantheon, Rome had it all. But beyond the city walls lay the unknown, strange lands, distant peoples, adventures, riches. What would you find on the road? Would you make it to the end of the journey alive? Could you brave the elements, the wildlife, the bandits, the loneliness? If you dared to leave the city, anything was possible. You wouldn't last a day on a Roman trade route, but then again, you never really know. The ancient Romans traveled a lot. They didn't invent the wheel or ships or animal domestication, but they did invent roads. Well, they didn't invent roads, but they were the first to connect a bunch of roads together so that you could travel across a massive amount of territory. So, if you want to learn more about the Romans, there's no better place to start. Roads were everywhere. People used them to go to market or to war, to visit friends, or to flee disaster. But the roads didn't belong to anyone. They belonged to everyone. That is, everyone in the Roman Empire, which, depending on when you're watching this, might be you. When you hear the word volcano, what comes to mind? Perhaps images of molten lava, smoke billowing into the air, or perhaps even fiery rain. These are all accurate descriptions of volcanic activity, but not necessarily those of the most famous volcano in history, Mount Vesuvius. In 79 AD, a series of volcanic eruptions blanketed the area surrounding Mount Vesuvius in ash, burying the nearby cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Today, visitors can walk through these cities and experience the preserved remnants of daily life 2,000 years ago. Mummified bodies, fresh food in abandoned homes and all. But for all their fame, there is much that historians don't know about these lost cities because they were covered in ash. And as it turns out, the quality of preservation was different in each place. We don't have nearly as many artifacts from Herculaneum as we do from Pompeii, in part because of the type of material the city was made of. Archaeologists believe that almost none of the wood used in construction survived the eruption. Today, we're going to explore why that might be the case. This is the second episode of our series on volcanoes. You can find more information in the description. Before we get into it, I want to thank you all so much for your support. This channel is something I've been working on for a long time, and it's very gratifying to see that my hard work is paying off and that you're enjoying this show. If you love learning new things, consider subscribing and joining the community. And if you want to help me make this show, consider supporting us for exclusive content and early access. Now, let's go back to the year 79 AD location, a Roman villa in Misenum located along the Bay of Naples. This is where Pliny the Elder, Roman admiral, scholar, and all-around know-it-all, spends his summers. Now, Pliny wasn't born in Misenum. In fact, he was born in Como, a city in northern Italy. But after he got married, he moved to Misenum to live with his mother and uncle. This house was basically a family heirloom. Pliny the Younger, his famous nephew, would inherit it after Pliny the Elder died. And we actually have letters written by Pliny the Younger describing the house in great detail. It had a colonnaded courtyard, fountains, statues, 2 stories of rooms, and beautiful views of the Bay of Naples and the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. According to Pliny the Younger, the entire property cost about 2 million sesterces. To put that number in perspective, Pliny the Younger estimated the total cost of all the real estate in Rome to be about 600 million sesterces. So the house may have been expensive, but it was by no means the most lavish property in town. But back to the year 79 AD. Pliny the Elder is spending a lovely summer morning in Misenum when his copyist comes running into his study with a message. A cloud has appeared above Vesuvius, and it doesn't look right. It looks kind of like a pine tree, if that's any indication. Pliny decides that he must go to sea for himself. And so he gets ready to set sail for Stabia, a coastal city near Pompeii. Once aboard the ship, Pliny begins dictating his observations to his scribe. The whole thing is actually recorded in a letter from Pliny the Younger to the historian Tacitus, who was also his friend. Pliny the Elder was actually the first to spot the cloud above Vesuvius, but he wasn't the first to warn of danger. About a month earlier, a letter from a senator named Pliny to his friend Pomponianus described a slight earthquake that struck the area. Pliny the Elder dismissed it as nothing unusual. But according to Pliny the Younger, his uncle was wrong. The first thing Pliny the Elder noticed about the cloud was its unusual shape. He compared it to a pine tree, which may have been accurate. Pine trees are often shaped like pyramids, which can resemble the shape of some volcanic plumes. Scientists think that the cloud Pliny saw may have actually been a pyroclastic flow. Pyroclastic flows are extremely hot mixtures of gas and solid matter that move down the side of a volcano at high speeds. As they move, they heat up the surface underneath, causing buried buildings to explode outward. They're one of the deadliest parts of a volcanic eruption, and it seems like this is exactly what happened in Herculaneum. In the archaeological record, we can see layers of pumice and ash covering everything in sight. For their part, the Romans didn't seem to know what to make of this strange pine tree cloud. After seeing it for himself, Pliny the Elder decided to return home, but soon realized he should probably go to Stabia instead. His friend Pomponianus had mentioned that people were fleeing the city in terror, which meant someone needed to stay behind to help. Pliny turned the ship around and sailed towards Stabia. When Pliny the Elder arrived in Stabia, he found complete pandemonium. People were running around with white faces and bedraggled hair, and animals were panicking and trying to escape. It may have been obvious to the Romans that something was very wrong, but Pliny tried to be rational. He comforted the terrified people and walked along the shore looking for pumice stones, which are solidified blobs of magma. He picked one up and tossed it in the water, and when it floated, he knew it was made of pumice. It was actually hollow. After confirming that they were dealing with a volcanic eruption, Pliny and his party stayed the night in Stabia. According to Pliny the Younger, his uncle slept calmly and ate dinner as if it was just another day. They could tell that the tremors were getting worse and knew that they wouldn't be able to sail back to Misenum. So they decided to stay another night. By the next morning, the tremors were violent, shaking the ground every few minutes. The wind was blowing hard, and the sky was pitch black despite being the middle of the day. Pliny and his companions went outside and looked to the mountain. They saw a dark, thick cloud covering the top and obscuring the daylight. Plinius described it as if it were alive, growing, shrinking, rising and falling. Every time it breathed, the ground shook. About noon, Pliny and his friends decided to leave Stabia and head back to Misenum. Their hope was to take a shortcut through the sea and avoid whatever disaster was coming their way. When they reached open water, Pliny began to feel better. Even though the sails were soaked in ash, he believed they were safe. Here, Pliny the Elder's account ends, or rather the account that we have of it. Unfortunately, while writing this letter to Tacitus, Pliny the Younger left out some pretty important details. For example, it seems likely that Pliny the Elder died here. And we know that because of a letter that Pliny the Younger wrote to another friend, describing what happened to his uncle. According to Pliny the Younger, his uncle and his companions never made it back to Misenum. Instead, they were met by another violent tremor and a wave that pulled away from the shore. And when the wave returned, it brought burning pumice and hot ashes. It's thought that this wave may have actually been a tsunami caused by the sudden displacement of water. Although modern scientific research suggests that this particular tsunami may have only reached Pompeii and not Herculaneum. Whatever happened, it killed Pliny the Elder and his companions. Pliny the Younger reported that their bodies were found 3 days later, where they had collapsed, undisturbed, as if they had fallen asleep. Once their bodies were found, their friends tried to carry them back to Misenum, but it was too late. Pliny the Elder was dead. It would have been a shock to anyone who knew him that he would die during a volcanic eruption, because throughout his career, he had worked hard to convince people that earthquakes and volcanic eruptions weren't really anything to worry about. Pliny the Elder was considered a bit of an oddball, even by Roman standards. He had a bunch of weird habits, like collecting bizarre objects from all over the empire, and requiring that all of his bath water be strained so that nothing would interrupt his tranquility. He was definitely a control freak. And maybe that's why he was such a dedicated scholar. In addition to having an insatiable curiosity about the world around him, Pliny the Elder liked to prove that natural phenomena followed certain laws, and that the same events happened in the same way every time. Pliny the Elder was obsessed with volcanoes, and he even cataloged several types in Naturalis Historia. So he was familiar with Vesuvius, but he never imagined that it would erupt and destroy the city of Pompeii. We don't know what Pliny the Elder was thinking when he decided to sail into the eruption, but it seems possible that he wanted to collect data, evidence of the eruption. And in a way, he did. Pliny's story became one of the first eyewitness accounts of a volcanic eruption in recorded history, and it taught later generations that volcanoes were something to be reckoned with. Thanks to Pliny the Elder, we know more about the eruption of Vesuvius than any other eruption before it. Herculaneum was completely destroyed in the eruption, but some buildings remained intact, and they were made of stone, like Pliny's villa. We know that the heat from the eruption reached temperatures of 230 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's possible that the wooden structures that compose most of the buildings simply burned up. Pliny the Elder may have been right about one thing. Maybe earthquakes and volcanic eruptions aren't something to worry about, except when they are. Let the dust of volcanoes and trade roads settle for a moment. We now shift gently to something quieter, something stranger, a mystery not of emperors or disasters, but of small bronze objects left behind with no clear purpose. Across the former lands of the Roman Empire, from Britain to Hungary, archaeologists have unearthed peculiar artifacts. They are hollow, cast in bronze or stone, with 12 flat pentagonal faces, each containing a round hole of varying size. On each corner, a small sphere is attached. These are the Roman dodecahedrons. No written record mentions them. No inscription explains them. They are not large. Most fit in the palm of your hand, yet they seem too finely crafted to be mundane. Imagine finding one. You turn it over in your hands. Cool metal, intricate design, strangely balanced. Its purpose doesn't announce itself. It whispers. Were they tools, toys, sacred objects? No one knows for certain. Some have suggested they were used by craftsmen to measure distances or calibrate pipe sizes. The holes vary. Perhaps they helped size rings or fabrics. Others claim they served as candlestick holders, with wax fitted inside the hollows. But many dodecahedrons have been found in burial sites. Some were placed with weapons, others among jewelry. Their locations offer few clues, some rural, some urban, but almost all within former Roman provinces outside of Italy. It's as if the core of the empire ignored them. But the frontiers held on. Some theorists believe they were astronomical tools, used to track solstices or equinoxes. Perhaps one could align the holes with the sun's position at specific times of year. A farmer standing in a field near Londinium or Lutetia might have held one toward the sky, watching the morning light filter through in just the right way. Or maybe they were religious objects, charms against the unknown. Their shape is precise, geometric. Sacred geometry was not unknown to Roman mystery cults. Perhaps these artifacts had meaning not spoken aloud. Objects not of daily use, but of quiet ritual. And yet, for all the speculation, no theory has stood above the rest. Each one remains an unanswered question. Each one invites touch, contemplation, and wonder. The mystery of the dodecahedrons is not loud. It does not scream for attention. It waits patiently in display cases or storage rooms. It endures. Perhaps in a villa long buried, a child once turned it over and over while their parents spoke of crops and taxes. Or perhaps a soldier carried one into battle, a charm from home. Or maybe it was never meant to be understood by us at all. Sometimes history leaves puzzles without keys, objects without context. And it is in that silence, that space between certainty and speculation, where the mind may drift most gently. A gentle reminder that this content is just a small part of the story. Consider supporting the project to gain access to extra segments like this. I can only imagine the sensation of turning one of these over and over in my hands, feeling its weight, seeing those holes arranged in such a strange pattern. These are so compelling because they're simple enough to consider holding one in your hands. Yet they come with so many questions about their purpose, their users, and their creators. When we encounter these objects today, it feels as though we've encountered something sacred. And you can tell I am hardly alone in thinking this. There are so many theories and ideas out there about what these objects may have been used for, and I want to hear yours. Some are practical, some have spiritual elements to them, yet none can be confirmed. And the lack of answers makes these artifacts even more intriguing. I love how in your response, you can write whatever you think about these objects. Maybe you have a great idea about their purpose. Maybe you have a personal connection to them. Whatever you write will be read and appreciated. For me, these fragments of the past are fascinating because they demonstrate the creativity and ingenuity of ancient cultures. To hold one of these objects is to connect with a tradition that has endured for centuries. It's a tangible link to the past that allows us to explore and understand ancient cultures in a new way. They're also mysterious because they challenge our understanding of the world. They make us question everything we know and consider the possibility that there are things we may never understand. This is exciting and daunting, but ultimately, it's a reminder that there is always more to learn. In a world where everything seems to be about speed and efficiency, these objects are a welcome reminder to slow down and appreciate the little things in life. They invite us to take a break from the hustle and bustle and to focus on the beauty that surrounds us. And finally, these objects are a source of inspiration. They remind us that humans have always been capable of great things and that we should never stop exploring, questioning, and creating. They show us that even in the face of adversity, we can find ways to thrive and leave our mark on the world. In short, these objects are more than just artifacts. They are a window into the human experience. They allow us to see the world through the eyes of those who came before us and to appreciate the richness and complexity of our shared history. What do you think these objects might have been used for? What do you think about their mysterious nature? What do you think about their ability to inspire us? What do you think about their connection to the past? What do you think about their ability to teach us about ourselves? This is a chance to share your perspective with others. So take this opportunity and let your voice be heard. Thank you for listening. Were they tools? Toys? Sacred objects? No one knows for certain. Some have suggested they were used by craftsmen to measure distances or calibrate pipe sizes. The holes vary. Perhaps they helped size rings or fabrics. Others claim they served as candlestick holders, with wax fitted inside the hollows. But many dodecahedrons have been found in burial sites. Some were placed with weapons, others among jewelry. Their locations offer a few clues, some rural, some urban, but almost all within former Roman provinces outside of Italy. It's as if the core of the empire ignored them, but the frontiers held on. Here in Britain, they turned up in a field near Londinium, the Roman name for London, and in a farmyard at Little Granston, just outside of Cambridge. There are 12 sides to this mystery, 12 faces. We tend to think of polyhedrons as static things, unchanging. But a dodecahedron is made of dynamic, hard angles and curved lines. It wants to spin, to roll, to be caught up in the motion of life. So we can imagine them turning in the hands of a Roman peasant. Turning and turning, endless fascination. Or maybe someone brought it out to watch the sunrise. The solstices and equinoxes are calculated events. You can check your calendar. On June, the sun will reach its highest point. On December, it will be at its lowest. But in between, in the subtler shifts of morning and evening light, something else is happening. Every day, the sun rises and sets in a different place. Its journey across the sky is a fluid, drifting thing. If you wanted to know where it would be at a certain hour, you would need to turn and tilt your dodecahedron until the light passed cleanly through one of the holes. This one in particular is perfectly calibrated to our latitude here in the northeast of England. So when the sun reaches its zenith, it will pass straight through the top. But hold it steady, track the sun for long enough, and you will see it shift again. By February, the same hole is no longer quite right. You must move around the dodecahedron, find a new one to peer through, and then another and another. If you track the solstices, you can watch the holes come and go like phases of the moon. Each one offers a different truth of the light. Or maybe they were religious objects, charms against the unknown. Their shape is precise, geometric. Sacred geometry was not unknown to Roman mystery cults. Perhaps these artifacts had meaning not spoken aloud, objects not of daily use, but of quiet ritual. And yet, for all the speculation, no theory has stood above the rest. And so we are left with these unanswered questions. These 12 perfect faces staring out from museum shelves, each one reflecting a piece of the eternal flame. They invite touch. They ask to be contemplated. They stir a sense of awe. We are drawn to the clean lines, the mathematical perfection, the tactility of it all. To hold such an object is to feel a sudden connection to those who came before. Across the centuries, across the millennia, we are linked by the questions we ask and the meanings we seek. Each dodecahedron is an enigma. Each one is a silent shard of the past. And taken together, they form a constellation, a mystery that deepens the more we learn, the more we strive to understand. The great empires of old leave behind grand monuments, obelisks and aqueducts, statues and steely swords. All of those speak loudly of power. The mystery of the dodecahedrons is not loud. It does not scream for attention. It waits patiently in display cases or storage rooms. It endures. It asks little of us and gives much. Perhaps in a villa once grand, now buried and long forgotten, a child once turned it over and over while their parents spoke of crops and taxes. Or a soldier carried it into battle, a charm from home. Or maybe it was never meant to be understood by us at all. Sometimes, history leaves puzzles without keys, objects without context, stories without end. And in that silence, in that space between certainty and speculation, where the mind may drift most gently. This is a segment from a larger work in progress about Roman Britain. The full video will be released in early 2024. Until then, What do you think? What do the dodecahedrons mean to you? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Let us now leave behind the roads, the ash and the unknown, and step inside marble, inside luxury, inside the curated, insulated world of the Roman elite. This is the 4th episode of our series, where we explore the many faces of the Roman Empire. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more updates. The Roman senator does not rise early. The sun is already softening the tiled floors when he begins his day. You might imagine yourself now, not as a traveler or laborer, but as someone born into power. Draped in a freshly laundered toga, your feet resting on cool mosaics depicting myths older than your family name. Slaves move like shadows, trained to speak only when spoken to. In the atrium, water trickles from a small fountain, a sculpted dolphin in mid-arc. Light filters down from the compluvium above, painting lazy gold patterns across the stone. And you, a Roman senator, have little to do today. The province you govern is stable, the people quiet, the harvest good, the roads well-maintained. What a rare piece of luck. No revolt in Judea, no Gothic raid in Britain, no barbarian uprising in Germania. Today, the empire is yours, to enjoy, and so you linger in bed. The villa is quiet, save for the gentle sweeping of brooms. Slaves move like shadows, trained to speak only when spoken to. In the atrium, water trickles from a small fountain, a sculpted dolphin in mid-arc. Light filters down from the compluvium above, painting lazy gold patterns across the stone. You stretch out beneath the silk sheets, listening to the murmur of servants preparing your day. Soon, one will come for you, a tall Nubian man with hands like chipped ivory, and help you dress. You allow him to fasten the brooch and cinch cords till your toga drapes perfectly, giving you that extra inch in height. Only a senator can afford to look that tall. Now, down to the tablinum, the family office. Here, the business of Rome, the dispatches, the correspondence, the petitions arrive. You listen as a steward recites letters. Some are dull. Property disputes, tax matters, requests for favors. A few are opportunities. A senator must know how to spot those, how to decipher the coded language of petitioners. You nod, give a short instruction, then move on. There is no rush. The pace of your life is slow, deliberate, ceremonial. Like an actor taking the stage, you adjust your toga and address the letter writer, asking for more details, pretending interest. You keep nothing back, for even the smallest people in Rome can be connected to the gods, or more likely, to poison. Your breakfast is modest: fruit, honey bread, wine watered, just enough to sharpen the mind, nothing to soil your perfect white toga. You read from scrolls, perhaps some poetry, or the latest oration from the forum. Or maybe you read about yourself in the latest speech. You critique it aloud, not for improvement, but to demonstrate that you could do better. A senator does not merely rule, he sets the standard. By mid-morning, clients arrive. These are lower men, often freedmen, men who owe their status to you. They come to your villa to bask in your reflected glory, to secure your influence in court or business. They arrive with gifts, olives, cheeses, promises of loyalty, anything to advance themselves. They flatter, you listen. You make no promises. A client is a relationship of obligation, not of comfort. In the afternoon, you might walk in your peristyle garden. This is the true test of wealth in Rome. The sound of your sandals on gravel, the scent of myrtle and laurel, the trillions of clipped hedges, the sculptures, the painted frescoes, the heroes of old showing their conquest, their battles, their myths, stories of order, of legacy, of righteous kingship. It is easy to see why the emperors favored these gardens. They are not merely beautiful, they are intimidating. Later, perhaps you visit the public baths. For a Roman senator, this is more than cleanliness. It is an exercise in politics. In the Tepidarium, you may share cautious words with a rival, a veiled threat, a false promise. In the Caldarium, the hot steam room, you may overhear whispers that will shift future votes. The bathhouse is both a sanctuary and a stage. But it is also a dangerous place, for what happens in the bathhouse stays in the bathhouse. Soon, it will be time for dinner, the cena. And here, finally you can relax. Well, almost. Your guests are already reclining on cushioned couches, draped in fine linens. Silver platters bring course after course. Dormice stuffed with herbs, roasted boar glazed in honey, and bowls of mulled wine. Musicians play softly in a corner. A Greek slave recites verse. Laughter ripples like silk. You smile, sip wine, and contemplate the distance. From the laborers who produced your food, the merchants who brought it to you, the slaves who cooked it, the clients who hoped to please you, the rivals who watched you closely, the emperor far away whose favor you depend upon. You are powerful, very powerful. Yet the more courses that arrive, the more you realize how much of it is borrowed. The reception, the banquet, the gardens, the villa, even the audience in the theater, all of it could be taken from you. A poorly chosen word in the Senate could end careers. A single whisper of scandal could undo decades of status. A minor god of love, a capricious goddess of vengeance. The head of the household has many enemies. So you measure every action, every glance, every bite of bread. Power in Rome does not shout. It murmurs in well-lit courtyards. It reclines beside you during dinner. It smiles, even when it intends betrayal. You are rich, but what use is money if it cannot buy you ease? The villas are grand, but where is the joy? The triumphs are glorious, but where is the peace? When the candles burn low, you retire to your sleeping chamber. You are tired, but never truly at peace. Even in your bed, with perfumed linens and the soft hush of silence, you carry the weight of expectations. It would seem an enviable life, but behind the marble, there is loneliness. Behind the luxury, obligation. The roads of the Roman Empire were hard, but the halls of power, they too came at a price. What is life like in other parts of the empire? We hear about the famous generals, the emperors, the martyrs. But what was daily life like for common folk? We continue our exploration of everyday life in the Roman Empire with 2 new segments. We travel to Alexandria, Egypt, and explore the daily life of a Greek slave. What was it like to be enslaved in the ancient world? How did slavery shape the societies of the Roman Empire? You'll find out next. Also this week, we head to the heart of the empire and explore the life of a Roman woman. What were her hopes, dreams, and obligations? What challenges did she face? What freedoms did she enjoy? You'll find out this week. Our series, Inside the Roman Empire, is made possible by our generous patrons. If you'd like to support our work and unlock exclusive perks such as early access, ad-free episodes, and more, go to our support page. It's 5 a.m. and the sun is barely a memory. The sky is the color of old brews and most of the city still sleeps. But in this house, the day has already begun. The senator, he is awake. He is up and he is listening. See, the first hours of the day belong to the family. In this room called the tablinum, where columns meet and marble floors gleam, a steward is reciting letters and petitions, some from merchants seeking a favor, others from landowners caught in a property dispute. Most are dull, but a few might be interesting. The senator nods at each one, giving a short instruction or a sharp comment, but there is no rush. His world moves to the rhythm of the long, slow march of the seasons. When he is done, he walks out into the peristyle courtyard. The air is cool and spiced with the scent of orange blossoms. Birds are singing, and the fountain in the center of the courtyard is gurgling. Now it's time for breakfast. He sits down at a small table with a chipped amphora of wine, some bread dipped in honey, and a plate of figs. He eats slowly, deliberately, then picks up a scroll and begins to read. Sometimes it is poetry or an oration, but more often it is the latest speech from the forum. He reads it critically, not because he wants to improve it, but because he wants to prove that he could do better. By mid-morning, it is time for clients. These are lower men, often freedmen who owe their fortune to his family. They want his influence in court or business, and they have brought a gift to show their devotion. Some bring olives or cheeses from their estates. Others bring promises of loyalty and votes. They flatter him. They tell him how much they admire his fine linens or the silver brooch on his tunic. He listens patiently, says nothing. He knows their worth and he knows his own power. After this, he might walk in his peristyle garden. The sound of his sandals on the gravel path is the only noise. The scent of myrtle and laurel thickens the air. He looks down at the trimmed hedges, the sculptures and the painted frescoes on the walls. They show heroic myths, stories of order, legacy, and righteous conquest. The garden is a celebration of Roman values, but also a reminder of his place in it. Later, he might visit the public baths. It is good to be clean, of course, but it is also good politics. In the Tepidarium, the warm air and the scent of oil make conversation easy. He might meet a rival here, and they exchange cautious words about the weather, the latest gladiatorial match, or the price of grain. But even such small talk can be dangerous. Words are weighed and measured, veiled threats and compliments. In the Caldarium, the hot steam rising around them, they could overhear whispers that will shift votes in the Senate tomorrow. The bathhouse is both a sanctuary and a stage. Now it is afternoon. He is changing into a white tunic and putting on his ring, the seal of which is set with a sword. It bears the image of a scowling lion. The senator straightens his robe, adjusts his fillet, and walks out the door. There is still much to do, important things that require his attention. The Senate, the Forum, the courts. There are decrees to be issued, votes to be cast, trials to be defended. But first, it is time for dinner, the Cena. Dinner is the true theater. Here in the atrium, guests are reclining on cushioned couches draped in fine linens. Silver platters are being carried in, laden with dormice stuffed with herbs, roasted boar glazed in honey, and bowls of mulled wine. Musicians are playing softly in a corner. A Greek slave is reciting verse. Laughter ripples like silk through the room. Every glance, every smile, every jest is carefully constructed. Everyone here has an agenda. Everyone is performing. And yet, beneath it all, beneath the banquets and the clients and the gardens, there is something else, an awareness. The senator knows the games he plays are delicate. His family's legacy depends on favors, on alliances, on careful appearances. A poorly chosen word in the Senate could end a career. A single whisper of scandal could undo decades of status. So he measures every action, every word, every breath. Power in Rome does not shout. It murmurs in the well-lit courtyard. It reclines beside you during dinner. It smiles, even when it intends to betray you. When the candles burn low, the senator will retire to his sleeping chamber. It is a beautiful room, cool and dark with perfumed linens and the soft hush of silence. But the senator never quite inhabits it. He sleeps, but he is never at peace. Even in his bed, the weight of expectations presses down on him. You might think this life is enviable, but behind the marble, there is loneliness. Behind the luxury, obligation. The roads of the Roman Empire are hard, but the halls of power, they too, come at a price. The Roman Empire, vast and ancient, was built not only by emperors and soldiers, but by travelers, thinkers, craftsmen, and servants. Each step along the Via Appia, each whispered deal in the Senate, each unknown object buried and forgotten is part of a larger hum, a civilization breathing in stone and scroll, in silence and struggle. And now that hum fades, leaving you standing in the twilight of the Palatine Hill, the lights of the Forum glowing around you like fallen stars. The day is done for Rome, for Misenum, for the travelers at Brundisium. Even the ghosts are silent. And in that quiet, you can almost hear the city exhale, letting out a long breath after a day of endless activity. If you were here 2,000 years ago, you would feel exhaustion settling in your bones, a pleasant tiredness born of a long day under the sun. The muscles in your calves would ache from walking the endless roads. Your hands would be blistered from gripping a sword hilt or a merchant's scale, and the dust of the Via Appia would tickle your nostrils and coat your throat, a gritty reminder of miles walked and goods carried. You would be tired, but there would also be satisfaction in your weariness, a job well done, a sale concluded, a battle survived. There would be no time for wallowing in exhaustion. For many in this city, life will begin again tomorrow in the pre-dawn hours, before the sun climbs high in the sky and turns the Forum into a furnace. But right now, the sky is painted with the soft hues of dusk, and the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and lavender. It's a moment of transition, a pause between days, a stolen breath before the endless grind begins anew. And you could steal a few moments more, lingering here at the edge of the Palatine Hill, watching the lights of the city wink on one by one until Rome is a constellation of flickering lamps against the deepening blue. Or you can head down into the Forum, weaving between the crowds making their way home from the fields of Mars. If you walk carefully, you might see a dog darting across your path, its eyes gleaming like polished amber in the lamplight. If you listen closely, you might hear the murmur of gossip and laughter echoing from the taverns along the way. You might smell roasted meat and sweet wine, mingled with the less savory aroma of stale urine and chamber pots. The city never truly sleeps. Not really. There are always guardsmen patrolling, merchants counting their wares, lovers meeting in secret. But in these hushed hours before the moon climbs high in the sky, Rome feels different. The familiar streets seem strange and unsettling, the monuments imposing and silent. The great emperors are gone to bed, dreaming of conquest or peace, of glory or peril. Caligula, if he walks these streets, is unrecognizable without his entourage. Marcus Aurelius sits alone, writing his meditations. And Augustus, the first emperor, wanders with his wife, Livia, seeking a peaceful evening stroll. Even the gods seem to slumber. The clamor of sacrifice and prayer has faded from the temple of Jupiter. The oracle of Delphi has finished speaking for the night, and the priests of Isis prepare for their vigil, keeping watch over their silent goddess. As you make your way through the empty streets, you feel a sense of solitude, a feeling of being utterly alone in this vast and ancient city. But you are not truly alone. In the shadows beside you, the spirits of Rome move silently. Here on the Palatine Hill, the ghost of Romulus, the she-wolf at his side, watches over his city. On the Aventine, the banished king, Tarquinius Superbus, paces restlessly, plotting his return to power. On the Capitoline, the three-headed god, Janus, looks out over the silent forum, his many eyes seeing all, his many mouths keeping secrets. And in the distance, on the lonely road to Brundisium, a legionary remembers his lost comrades. Their faces pale in the dawn light, their armor heavy with ash. Wherever you go in Rome, they are with you. The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten stories, the memories of those who came before. And yet, in the midst of all this, there is a strange sense of calm. The chaos of the crowds, the noise of chariot wheels and hawkers' cries, the din of politics and war, it's all gone. In its place is a quiet that seems to wrap around you, enveloping you in its stillness. You stand in the heart of the eternal city, surrounded by the ghosts of emperors and plebs, patricians and slaves, heroes and villains. And for a moment, you are one with them all. A tiny spark in the vast darkness, a fleeting echo in the endless silence. And so you wander the empty streets, taking in the sights and sounds of a sleeping Rome. You see the gnarled branches of the sacred fig tree on the Palatine Hill, gnarled and twisted by the passage of time. You hear the crickets chirping their nightly song from the shadows beneath the arches of the Colosseum. You feel the cool marble beneath your feet, worn smooth by countless footsteps over the centuries. And you look up at the star-studded sky, wondering at the countless stories that have unfolded beneath the same celestial tapestry. And then, as the night grows late and the hours slip by, you come to a crossroads. Before you lies the decision that will shape your destiny, the choice that will determine your fate. Will you follow the straight path or take the winding road? Will you seek out the familiar or embrace the unknown? Whatever you decide, know that you are not alone. The spirits of Rome are with you, guiding you, challenging you, whispering their secrets into the wind. They want you to succeed, to conquer, to leave your mark on the world. They want you to be the hero of your own story. But ultimately, the choice is yours. The path ahead may be fraught with peril, but with courage and determination, you can overcome any obstacle. The spirits of Rome believe in you. Do you believe in yourself? And so you stand at the crossroads of your destiny, the ghosts of Rome watching intently. Whatever path you choose, know that you carry with you the strength, the wisdom, and the resilience of the greatest empire the world has ever known. You are a child of Rome, and the spirit of the city flows through your veins. Go forth and make your mark on the world. For this is the end of our journey, the conclusion of our tale, the fading of the Roman sun. And yet, like the river Tiber, our story continues to flow, carrying us ever forward into the darkness. Sleep now, traveler. Rest your weary bones and dream your dreams. For tomorrow, The sun will rise again over the eternal city, and with it, new adventures, new challenges, and new opportunities for glory. As you drift off to sleep, you can almost hear the faint echoes of laughter and music drifting from the taverns and brothels of the city. You can almost feel the rumble of chariots racing through the streets, the shouts of vendors selling their wares, and the murmur of gossip and intrigue. The city never truly sleeps, not while there are souls within its boundaries seeking pleasure, power, or peace. And as you close your eyes, you know that your journey through the heart of Rome is over for now. But the spirit of the city will live on in your heart, guiding you, inspiring you, and reminding you that even in the darkest of nights, there is always the promise of dawn. Sleep well, traveler, for you have earned it. You have walked the streets of the eternal city and witnessed its wonders and its mysteries firsthand. You have met its people, both living and dead, and shared in their joys and sorrows. Now it's time to rest. Let the dreams of Rome carry you away to distant lands and adventures beyond your wildest imaginings. Let the spirit of the city guide you through the labyrinth of your subconscious, where emperors become shepherds, gladiators dance with wolves, and the boundaries between the living and the dead grow thin. When you wake, you will be forever changed by your journey through the heart of Rome. The sights, sounds, and sensations of the city will be etched into your memory, and the lessons you've learned from its inhabitants will stay with you for the rest of your life. As you rest now, far from the blazing sun of Brundisium or the fire-lit banquets of Misnum, you carry a quiet piece of this ancient world with you. You've walked where merchants once lived. You've watched as ash fell gently on parchment. You've turned a strange, weighty dodecahedron in your mind. You've seen that even the most powerful men lived lives full of routine, ritual, and quiet calculation. History does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And in that whisper, we find calm. In the dust of forgotten stories, we find rest. So close your eyes, if you haven't already. Let the empire fade. Let the sea grow still. Let the road stretch endlessly into the darkness, and sleep. You awake to the smell of salt and wood smoke. The embers of last night's fire have been scattered by the tide. A few steps from the shore, you feel the sand between your toes and hear the calls of gulls crying overhead. It's a new day in the late 2nd century Adia, but you feel a lifetime away from Rome. This island was never meant to be a place of exile. A voice of exile. Once, its shores welcomed pilgrims coming to pay tribute to the god, Apollo at the Temple of the Four Winds. Now those winds whip across the bay carrying the scent of brine and ruin. For the great city of Athens has fallen to barbarian hands. You run a finger along the chipped stonework of an altar, imagining the hopes and dreams whispered into its hollows 2,000 years ago. But all you find is the sound of your own voice echoing back at you. What brings you to this desolate coast? Is it loss or love that drives you? Perhaps a yearning for something better? There are many reasons to leave the known world behind, though few lead to shores so wild and wind-scoured. The sea can heal some wounds, yet time is a cruel surgeon, cutting deep to lay bare the truths we hide from ourselves. How long has it been since you left the life you once knew? Days, weeks, months? Time blurs on the road, measured only by the rising and setting of the sun. You're weary now. Your clothes are torn. Your skin is sunbeaten and scarred. Do people still recognize you? Did they ever? Who are you? What were you? These questions burn unanswered in your chest like a shard of glass. The past year has been a gauntlet of grief and hardship. You've survived shipwreck and siege, plague and poverty. You've walked through the shadow of Vesuvius, stood in the shadow of the Colossus of Rhodes, heard the mournful song of Hadrian's villa, saw the bones of Herculaneum bleaching in the sun. How many more sights must you endure? How much longer must you wander before finding peace? There is no way to know what lies ahead. That is why you walk, to keep moving forward until you have nothing left to outrun. But perhaps that's just a rumor you tell yourself. Maybe the true reason you travel is because there's nowhere left to go. Home is gone. You have no choice but to keep walking. This endless road is your only path, and it leads only into the darkness. Oh, weary traveler, you move like a shade through empty streets, past the statues of long-dead emperors, across the cracked and broken stones of the Via Sacra. Where are the laughter and chatter of shoppers? Where are the shouts of vendors and the clank of a blacksmith's hammer? Even the birds have abandoned these empty halls. Rome is silent. All is still, but you press on, drawn by some unseen force toward the center of the empty city. You pass the Forum, where the great Caesar was assassinated, the Senate, where power shifted like sand, the Colosseum, where blood and thunder once shook the very foundations of Rome. You stop before the shattered arch of Janus, two-faced god of transitions. Behind you lie the ruins of the past. Before you stretches a future without hope. What will you do when the road ends and the darkness swallows you whole? You clutch the fragment of marble in your hand, a shard of beauty from a world grown cold. You have nothing left now but memories, souvenirs of a vanished world. They weigh heavy in your sack. Do you remember the vibrant colors of Pompeian frescoes? The sculpted marble of Praxiteles? The intoxicating perfume of myrrh and cinnamon? They're gone now, lost in the fires of yesterday. Only their ghosts linger on your skin, haunting you with whispers of what once was. Rome may be falling, but the earth remembers. The seasons turn as they always have, whispering secrets older than time itself. Do you listen? Do you hear the heartbeat of the world beneath your feet? The rustle of leaves in the branches above you? Listen closely. What do you hear? A hawk cries out. A deer steps lightly. A twig snaps underfoot. Life persists, indifferent to the decay of empires. A small bird builds a nest in the shadow of a fallen column. Ivy clings to the cracked stones of an aqueduct. Can you see how green things grow even here, determined to cover the ruins with living beauty? Even in the heart of a dying city, life goes on. If you look closely enough, you can find it everywhere around you, pushing up through the cracks in the pavement, clinging to the crumbling walls, taking root among the fallen statues. The roots of a small tree wind together around the base of the column of Antimanus. A fig tree grows fat on the Palatine Hill. Vines swell with purple grapes on the walls of Nero's Domus Aurea. Nature is patient. She waits. And when the monuments of man crumble to dust, she will reclaim the streets for her own. You stumble on, driven by an instinct older than the city itself, a need to seek shelter before nightfall. The moon is thin tonight, offering little comfort to travelers on dark roads. Soon the shadows grow long, then stretch to claim the fading light. You hurry on, seeking somewhere, anywhere to rest before the darkness falls. You find it at last, tucked away on a side street, a small courtyard overgrown with weeds, a fountain choked with vines. In the center, a statue of Aphrodite gazes serenely into the gathering gloom. Rest here for now. Stay as long as you need to gather your strength for the road ahead. As night falls, the crickets chirp their mournful song. You watch fireflies blink on and off like fallen stars. The scent of night-blooming jasmine drifts on the air. Above you, the sky is filled with a million glittering pinpricks of light. The stars offer no guidance to travelers on dark roads. Still, they remind you that even in the darkest hours, there is always beauty to be found. It's time now to go. You rise stiffly, brushing dirt and leaves from your clothes. The moon is higher in the sky, a sliver of bone in the velvet darkness. The road stretches endlessly before you, leading out of the city into the unknown. Will you find peace on this road, or only more pain? That remains to be seen. Only one thing is certain. The journey continues. You step onto the road and begin to walk, just as you have for the past year, just as you will for many years to come. The city is silent behind you. The road is dark ahead, but you walk on, a solitary figure against the endless night. And as you do, you feel a strange sense of calm settle over you. The road may be long and the darkness deep, but you are not alone. You are accompanied by the whispers of the past, the echoes of 1,000 stories that have unfolded along these ancient stones. You are connected to the long chain of humanity that stretches back to the beginnings of time, to the first hominids who walked upright in Africa, to the first civilizations that blossomed in the Fertile Crescent and the Indus Valley. You are part of a story that is far greater than you are. You are part of the story of humanity. So keep walking, traveler, for the road is your story, and your story is the road. Walk on and find your place in the grand tapestry of human history. Walk on and discover the meaning of your journey. Walk on and find your way home. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fall of Rome. If you enjoyed this series, please consider subscribing to our channel and leaving us a review. We'd also like to thank our patrons for their generous support.